Flash those signs for me, please. Save Barrenjoey. Save Barrenjoey. Hands off the headland. So I'm Robert McKinnon. I'm the Secretary of the Palm Beach and Whale Beach Association. We are proud to be celebrating our 105th birthday in 2023. And part of our charter is to preserve and enhance the natural beauty of the area. That's why we're here. We asked several times for someone from National Parks to come and present their case, and we haven't heard from them.
Today we stand on Gadigal country, and I pay respect to my elders past and present, and also those that are emerging. My ancestors cared for this country. They treated it like they treated their mother. Can't we do the same? Respect what we have. So it's on behalf of those ancestors, my ancestors, that I say welcome to you today. Welcome.
Those buildings up there are so important. They're on the National Heritage Register, the State Heritage Register, and Northern Beaches Council's Heritage Register. In 2013, National Parks and Wildlife chose to make an amendment to that plan of management. In it, they were proposing to do adaptive reuse of the buildings up there for a number of purposes, including tourist accommodation, conferences, functions, restaurants, cafes, kiosks, and other food and beverage provision. They also wanted to build some new cottages alongside the fishermen's cottages at the base of Barrenjoey. So the Palm Beach Association once again came to the fore, headed by Storm Jacqueline at the time, and we held a rally in exactly this place.
What do we say? We've said it once, let's say it again. No! Do we want a function centre of all things here? No! Do we want kiosks here? No! Do we want souvenir shops here? No! No, we do not. What we want here is our heritage maintained. Ladies and gentlemen, there is nothing I would maintain as important as heritage. Heritage defines us. It gives us as individuals a meaning of what we are. It gives us as communities a meaning of what we are. It gives us as a nation a sense of what we are.
So what have National Parks got in mind this time? In September last year, they introduced the new draft plan of management. Comments on it closed on the 22nd of December of last year, when everybody's thinking about going on holidays. Among their proposals was short stay visitor accommodation at the Assistant Lightkeeper's Cottage, and there are two up on the headland, and the Boatman's Cottage on Station Beach that's currently used by a National Parks ranger. They also were quite vague in saying they wanted National Parks and Wildlife and or community use in those locations, as well as the Lighthouse Keeper's Cottage as well. I wanted to mention another document that's also kind of slipped under the radar, and it's the Barrenjoey Headland Conservation Management Plan of 2012. In that plan, they engaged heritage specialists to look at the buildings up on the headland, and they used a rating scale, ranking those buildings, and that rating scale goes as follows: exceptional, high, moderate, neutral or intrusive. And guess what? The buildings up the top were all considered to be exceptional, and we agree with that. The other concern is buried in page 87 of that plan of management, conservation management plan. It says the Minister can grant leases within a national park to provide accommodation and facilities and licences to carry out trade or business activities. Once again, we don't want accommodation on Barrenjoey. Hands off Barrenjoey. Thank you. National Parks use a term, a bureaucratic term called adaptive reuse for heritage buildings. But what's that really mean? It's a euphemism for modernisation. They have to cater for the needs of paying guests in 2023. And what does that mean? New kitchens and bathrooms, new toilets, sewage connection, water connection. There's no water connection up there at the moment, it's tank water. Probably reverse cycle air conditioners for the comfort of those who take the trek up to the top. There's an old saying, you can't unscramble an egg. So once those buildings have been tampered with, they're ruined. And that's what national parks have in mind. Those cluster of buildings were designed by the government architect James Barnett, and some consider it as some of his finest works. If you go up there at various times of day, you can see the shadow play of light against that sandstone that's just been beautifully crafted. And they use a lot more curves than you might see in other sandstone buildings around Sydney. So we shouldn't tamper with those buildings. Barrenjoey Headland also has the least modified, most intact lighthouse keepers' cottages on the New South Wales coast. Scandinavia and other countries seem to value old buildings and like to keep them exactly the way they were when they were built. And that's why we want those cottages returned to the way they were in 1881. We don't want national parks to do a Harvey Norman or an IKEA kitchen makeover. We want them to be original. Now, the other thing that national parks haven't thought about is the logistics of actually getting up there. So what have they got in mind? Have they got some sort of a hidden agenda? Are they going to provide a carriage service to get people up to the top? Once again, there's something they're not telling us. And the same logistical problems apply to the staff that'll be doing the changeovers, the people that make the beds, that tidy up, that vacuum, that take away the garbage. How are they going to get up? The only way they're going to get up there is in ATVs carrying all their stuff. They just haven't thought it through. We're also aware that national parks have a privatisation agenda. We believe privatisation has a place, but not when it comes to putting sensitive, publicly owned, built and natural assets into the hands of those who seek to make a profit. The President and a number of the committee met with Ministers Stokes and Griffin, the Minister for the Environment, last Thursday, and we had a lengthy and at times heated meeting, the outcome of which was there was no concessions at all. They wanted to keep the concept of having accommodation up on the headland in the draft plan of management.
The Liberal government. That's a good start.
And it's all a matter of perspective. Where we see grandeur of old, unadorned buildings, they see bedrooms with paying guests, with the cash registers in their mind going ka-ching. Barrenjoey Headland is for all. Along the Northern Peninsula, it's a place with the same cachet as Uluru or the Three Sisters, where visitor accommodation is kept at a respectful distance. Barrenjoey is a special place, so let's keep it that way. And we can only do it if the New South Wales Government listens to us by saying, hands off Barrenjoey. Our grandchildren and all future generations will thank us. Just think, as the tentacles of urbanisation spread ever wider, the value of natural experiences will increase exponentially. Let's preserve this special place. Don't destroy it. Let's all shout in chorus, hands off Barrenjoey.
I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners, the Gadigal people. For tens of thousands of years, they've cared for places just like we're just behind us here, and we owe them a great debt. We also owe them the responsibility of making sure that we don't wreck it. National parks are given the highest status of protection for a reason. We decide that we're going to set them aside to conserve everything that is important about them. That includes, obviously, the plants and the animals and the stories that are there, but it also includes the cultural and built heritage that has developed over time that tells the story of this nation. This is something that is on the National Heritage Register. It's on the State Heritage Register. There has been more studies probably done about this lighthouse in a lifetime that we will ever even read, the thousands and thousands of pages and the millions of words. But what it comes down to at the end of this is that this is a very special place. It's owned by the public. It's actually our responsibility and it's the government responsibility to care for it into the future. I was glad that Rob reminded us the history of the plan of management to get to a little bit of the detail of what needs to be done and how we can actually turn this around. In 2002, the previous Labor government did the plan of management. Plans of management which are developed for national parks are extremely important. They're very detailed, they're based on science, they're based on heritage assessments, and if they're working properly, they actually involve the local community, and hopefully they also are involving First Nations people as we develop those. It was decided then that this was a special place and that it wasn't going to be commercialised or privatised. In 2013, new government comes in, and straight away they're looking at how we can commercialise the site. No one is opposed to fixing it and looking after it, and as Rob gave a whole range of reasons, having a talk about how you could better use and the public can better access those beautiful buildings. No one is arguing against that. But when you start to put on all of this stuff about adaptive reuse and the potential for conference facilities, the potential for accommodation, then you know that really you're starting to degrade the place straight away, and there needs to be a very careful conversation if ever that happens, and it really is unacceptable. What is also unacceptable is that the government ruled out doing exactly what they're trying to do right now. You fought back in 2013, and good on you for all of you who've been doing this for decades. And let's also remember the current government has ignored the plan of management since 2002. So why the unseemly rush, literally less than 60 days from a state election, to try and sign this off and say there's nothing that can be done? There's always something that can be done. And the first thing that should happen today is that Minister Griffin, the Minister for Environment and Heritage, should basically make the commitment that he is not going to sign off on that draft plan of management until after the election, until the people of this area and beyond can have their say about what they think should happen here. And the last thing I wanted to say too is that it's not just Barrenjoey. So after 2013, when Rob Stokes said, yep, no problem, we're not going to do that, it's everything safe, I'm going to care for it, we're going to look for it. What happened then is the current government over a period of time has stripped over $120 million out of our national park system. In 2015, I was leaked a memo from the National Parks and Wildlife Service that basically said, and it was very surreptitiously, literally stuck under my door at Parliament House one day, and it said this, it said, we cannot sustain the cuts that are being made by the government. If we are forced to try and implement all of these cuts, we will have to look for commercialised opportunities everywhere across the state. Well, let's fast forward to 2023, and it doesn't matter where it is. All over the state, communities like yours are fighting against this kind of commercialisation and, frankly, privatisation of these very precious places. It has to stop. So I urge you all today to do a couple of things. Speak loudly. Keep speaking loudly about this. Speak to Rob Stokes. He's still the local member here. He still has a responsibility here. Speak to all of the candidates for the local election. What I'm saying is that everybody needs to speak up and speak together. You can turn this around, but you're going to have to lift your voice. I'm very happy to stand here with you today. Thank you.
We're here because the National Parks and Wildlife Service have put together a proposal that at the moment is unacceptable to our community. And my job as your local councillor and as a candidate for the seat of Pittwater at the upcoming state election is to go into bat for you. I know that this week there was a meeting with Minister Griffin and Minister Stokes, and after that meeting I went and I spoke to Minister Griffin, and what I can tell you today is I agree completely with Penny Sharp, which is that the plan of management will not be signed before the election. The Boatman's Cottage is off the table, and so Cole will continue to live there as caretaker and look after that wonderful area. The road will not be widened, and I can assure you that if I'm elected, I will continue to represent our community and do everything I can to make sure that your wishes that your wishes are reflected in that plan. But I think the other important thing is, as Robert McKinnon pointed out quite rightly, there are so many other wonderful uses that we could have up there, be it arts facilities, be it galleries and things of that kind. And if we want that in there, then what we need to do is we actually need to get back to the table, amend the draft plan, and that's the other thing that Minister Griffin has undertaken to do, which is form a strategic reference group, which will inform the future of that plan of management, and so the plan reflects the will of the community. And so I can assure you that I will continue to represent you, and I'll continue to make sure your voices are heard, and I'll look forward to the strategic reference group, which will be represented by the Palm Beach and Whale Beach Association, by residents and by our community, because this is community land. This is public land, and it's not appropriate to have commercial enterprises on public land of the kind that are proposed. And so...
No accommodation!
Well, can you imagine the amount of money that would be attracted to lease out those beautiful cottages on the up on the headland? The rents in Palm Beach are enormous, and those cottages are very, very unique. The cottages would need to undergo substantial renovation, costly renovation, including electrical and plumbing, kitchen and bathroom, heating, cooling, modern appliances, and at least refrigerators. And who do you think would fit that bill? There are other major planning issues. The plan contradicts another plan to turn parts of Palm Beach into the country's first urban night sky park. This magnificent area has a huge cultural significance for both First Nations people and for all of us. It is one of the most beautiful areas in Sydney to visit, and we live here. Obviously, the Greens want to keep this place in its pristine condition, maintaining it and conserving it for all to enjoy. Let's not lose this beautiful treasure that we have. Thank you.
It's really hard to follow up when all the promises that we've seen made previously by our Liberal government about things like the St Marvellous Hospital, and we won't amalgamate with Northern Beaches, and now we've got promises that they won't do anything up here. As a Labor representative, that'll be my job in a Labor government, which is the only other party that can form a government, and I'll be representing you, who I always think are the main drivers behind policy. Penny went through all of the points that Labor looks at, and our policy is definitely not to commercialise or privatise national parks. A lot of you are the generation that I was when the Angels asked a question in their various concerts where, will I ever see your face again? Now, my answer to will we privatise or commercialise this place is very similar to that. I can see a few smiles. I've lived here for 63 years and I hope to live here for a lot longer, but in a place that looks like this, not a commercialised or overdeveloped piece of land.
I haven't said it for a while. Hands off Barrenjoey.
Hands off Barrenjoey!
Fortunately, pretty much everything that I might have said has already been said more eloquently than I could say it. I'm going to start with an anecdote, which is that I tried back in the 1970s to rent one of the cottages on Barrenjoey, and it was $50 a year was the rent. My next point is, mention has been made of Currawong. I knew quite a few people that were involved in the battle to save Currawong. There are some here, like Rick LePasture, who could probably tell me how long it took, but I know it was many years. It wasn't simply a matter of Rob Stokes stepping in and saving it. It was a huge community effort. And I suppose the point that I'm making there is that it's lovely to look out and see a couple of hundred people here, but I know from past experience that often as these kind of controversies persist, people tend to drift away. So please don't drift away, please stick with it. One more observation. I lived here for 50 years. I've been climbing over Barrenjoey all of that time in one form or another. I now live in Goulburn, so I can't be accused of being a NIMBY. I've driven all the way from Goulburn this morning because I feel passionately that Barrenjoey should be retained for the public and not for the use of a few private individuals. I'm curious to know what the costs are of the renovation and how much the rents are going to be, because I can't see, and I'm not an architect or an economist, but I can't see how they can spend the amount of money they need to spend to make those huts, those houses habitable, how they can actually make that money back through rent. One last question. Is there some private entity behind all of this that nobody's mentioned? Okay, one more final point. Am I the only person that has written to the Minister and hasn't got a response to any of my questions? Has anybody here got a response to questions that they've asked? No. And unfortunately there's a pattern that's set in on the northern beaches, which is that letters are ignored. So anyhow, keep writing letters, keep signing petitions, keep coming to meetings like this, and I'm sure one way or another we can stop this. Thank you.
I had to use an electioneering slogan, and it's a very old one, but it's very appropriate to the situation we find ourselves in now. And James touched on it. Maintain the rage. We're angry now, but we're going to continue to be angry until this place is returned to its natural state.
Thank you all for coming today. I'm actually quite emotional after having heard these stories and speeches, and particularly from Uncle Neil. I quite welled up with tears in my eyes, so excuse me if I wobble a bit with my voice. Barrenjoey Lighthouse is often referred to as the jewel in the crown of Pittwater, and the lighthouse and the cottages are the oldest remaining group of structures in Pittwater. The lighthouse is one of a collection of major lighthouses forming the coastal highway of lights along the New South Wales coast. A key characteristic of the site is a sense of difficulty in accessing it and its isolation, and in this it differs from many of the other lighthouses in that string of lights. It's a place to switch off, slow down, be mindful and engage respectfully with the stunning environment. Barrenjoey Headland is such an extraordinary place. Let's keep it that way, and we can only do that if the National Park and the government listen to us. Hands off Barrenjoey!
Hands off Barrenjoey!
As Robert said earlier, future generations will thank us for it. As the tentacles of urbanisation spread ever wider, the value of natural experiences will increase exponentially. Let's preserve this very special place. Don't destroy it. Listen to the words of the famous singer-songwriter Joni Mitchell. They paved paradise and put up a parking lot. Don't let the bureaucrats pave paradise on Barrenjoey Headland. We say again, hands off Barrenjoey. The Palm Beach and Whale Beach Association petition asks the Minister of the Environment to amend the plan of management for Ku-ring-gai Chase National Park by deleting any reference to short-term accommodation on the headland. It also asks him not to approve any leases to third parties to provide accommodation and requests him to set up a separate plan of management for the headland. So our proposed resolution today is that this meeting, that's all of you people, firmly oppose the use of the heritage buildings on Barrenjoey Headland for short-term accommodation and support the PBWBA petition to the Minister for the Environment. Can I please have a show of hands, all those in favour?
Yes.
Yes, overwhelming. Anyone against? I didn't think so.
Unanimous.
That is a really strong message to the government. Hands off Barrenjoey.